Alright, so today I am working on a Land Cruiser 100 front brakes. These front brakes are way overdue, so let's get at it and see what it all entails. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is take off the dust cap. Next is a C-clip, which is right here. I can spread it and kind of half get it out, but there we go. There we go. We got it out. There we go. All right, so there's that clip. So the next is one of the really hardest parts is you gotta take these nuts off, but then there's cone washers behind. So let's see if we can do that without too much trouble. I think they're 14 mil. The idea is that you beat on this and then that makes that get loose. So there we go. That wasn't too bad. All right, so let's do this one. See, there's the little washer first. That's the cone washer behind. Keeping this back a little bit so I'm really hitting the stud good. Look at this, see these are threading on and off easily. That means that none of the threads are damaged. There we go. So now we can get right at the bearing and all the other washers. That was easy. These are, I think, 17 mil nuts. Extra foot of, there we go, it moved. You can see us down to the middle, way past due, a little bit of life on the other side, so this definitely needed to be changed. There we go. So once you got this out, the front bearing is out, but there's still the back bearing on there. And the rear bearing is held in by this seal, which we are replacing. To get the seal out, this is the easiest way to do it. I'll show you. Basically what we do is we put the wheel bearing back on. Oh. Then what we do is we put the axle washer on. And then basically by yanking this, that will take it off. So you just want to give it a good hard pull. There we go. So now you can see there's the back bearing and the seal. Next we're going to take the races out of the hub and take the hub out of the rotor, which should be interesting. So here's our rotor. You can see I took the 5 17 mil nuts that hold the hub to the rotor. This thing is seized big time, so I'm just going to coat it down with some your favorite anti-seize, WD-40, PB Blaster, whatever you use. And while that hopefully goes to work, I'm going to clean up inside here. I don't have any gloves, I ran out. So this is just going to be a good hand washing day afterwards. So to take the races out, you need something like a brass punch or a punch of itself like this. So let's start, see if this will work. I don't know if it's going to hit it hard enough. All right, I'm going to make my own. These are too short. Let's just cut this. This is longer. Let's take a look. Oh yeah. There we go. That one, if you're looking here, I used a brass hammer on this one. You'll see 0 scratches because brass is softer than steel, right? There's no scratches. This is where it's hitting, right here, right here, right there. Now you may see some on this side. So you see a few little dents there, a few little dents here. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is try to get this hub out. I have another idea. If I go here, there's nothing to be damaged there. Really? I don't think that's going to do it. I think it needs vibrations or hard hits. So that's working. Oh yeah. There we go. Lovely. So we got our hub out of our old rotor. Just putting the races in the freezer, and then in theory they will be a little bit smaller and slide in a little bit easier. Just want to go through and clean this all out. Okay, so while I'm cleaning, I'm just going to quickly clean the dust cap, this outside flange thingy-mabob, whatever it's called. So the next trick I'm going to do, I'm going to use the old races to hammer in the new races. But because it'll get stuck, what you do is you cut a line in it and then it'll fit. All right, so now we're going to get these new bearings in, the races in. So we're going to start with this one. It's got a little bit of frost on it. Doesn't matter. So you want it this way, thick part in. To start with, I got this clean piece of wood here, and I'm going to start just with tapping on here. Pretty much flush now. Put that right on top, slowly tap it in. I'm going to use my brass hammer just because it's lighter. So you can see I'm already down about a... See? Now I'm going to flip it over. So we can just... Basically, you see I got it in there, but because it can just compress, it'll just come out. So let's just make sure. All right, let's quickly do the other side. And then I'll keep these bearing races for the other wheel. Here's the other frozen one. Oh, look at that. See, that's just falling right in almost. This is also where it's good to have a brass hammer. So in case I hit these, what would be a good idea is just to put your nut on each of the end of these. That way if you hit them, there's no damage. Still got a bit to go. I think we're pretty much good. A little bit more. So what I'm going to do now, just try to hold this hammer here on there. Okay. And simple as that. Old races out, new races in. So one thing you do want to make sure is this mating surface for the rotor is very clean. I'm just going to quickly wire brush it. See, there's a little burr there, so I'm going to want to just take my file. Now this is obviously just from using the air chisel, and just make sure it's nice and flat. There's no burrs. Let's get our new rotor. It's really good lined up here. It's on there. It's nice and snug. You can see it's starting to come up right there. See the grease coming up through, then we know it's greased enough. You can see it's coming out the top. This one goes in here. And then what I'm going to do next is put the seal on in. Just a little bit of grease to help it slide in. So now, when I'm going to be putting this on the hub, what I want to do is just a bit of grease right around here. In here, you want enough grease kind of to bridge the gap between this bearing and that back bearing. So I'm going to do that now. Unfortunately, I don't have gloves, so this is going to get messy. I don't know how I'm going to stop the camera. Okay, so it's the next day, and my socket was not a deep socket. It's not deep enough, so when you would put it on to tighten up the axle nut, I couldn't get in deep enough. So little Amazon came to the rescue, and I bought this one, and it is actually, I think it's 2 1/16, and it kind of works. It's a little bit snug. I got to tap it on, but it's working. It does the job, so I'm happy with that. So I have my 2 axle nuts. I have the C-clamp. I got a new one here. This is the washer. This is the locking washer, and it also has the locating tab there. Here is the gasket. Let's get this axle bolted back up correctly. First thing you do is get your hub back on, get your bearing, your outside bearing pushed in, and then we start with first washer with the locating pin. That goes on. Then you have your first axle nut and the flat side. You see there's a curved side and a flat side. The flat side should be in. These are a little bit finicky to get on. Here we go. And then there's a bit of a whole sequence of torquing that needs to get done. So let's torque this to 43. Okay, so we want to make sure it's going nice and freely. That's good. And now we want to loosen it off again until it's finger tight. And now we want to go to 6 Newton meters, which is about 4 pounds-foot. This is very minimal. See, look at that, barely. Next we get our lock washer, and you see this has a nice little locating bump. Then we put our second and flat side in again. And then we tighten this one to 48 pounds-feet, I believe. Actually 47 foot-pounds. Now that should, in theory, do it. Now what you also have next is then this scale, and this should get you around, I think, 9 to 13. That's 10 there. What you want to do now is you want to take 2 of these tabs here, bend one in and one out. This one I'm going to bend back. Alright, and now this one we're going to bend up to lock this outside one. There we go. So both axle nuts are locked in place. Next is the flange on there. Just turn this there we go. There we go. And now we do our lovely mix of cone washers, and then nuts. Almost had it. I think I got it. Part of it. That was a battle. So now it's just a matter of popping the dust cap on. Use a brass hammer, rubber hammer, or gently with a steel hammer. Now, once it's all bolted up, you turn this, you're like, ooh, it's a lot harder. That's because it's now connected to the axle and you're turning both sides, so don't worry about that. Next is putting together your brake pads. Sometimes you get a full shim in the back. These don't come with it, so this goes over here. Key is keep your old caliper. I have my old caliper here because there's so many different clips and whatever, and if you don't do this every day, so put that on the back of the pads. Through here, then we go through this, then through this side then up through there. Basically what this does is especially keep the leading edge. If you just have one of these, put it on the leading edge of your caliper, which would be here, just to keep the leading edge from touching. You take one of these through there and punch it through there. So that holds that all in place. And then for this you need to get these in. So I try to bend this in the hole there. It's easier just to pull the whole thing back, get it in the hole, and then pull this little thing up. There we go. Now we can put the caliper back onto the car. Now let's just put the this hose back on. Alright, so that's done. That is how you do the brakes on a Land Cruiser, and next I'll just quickly bleed them. Alright, let's test the brakes to make sure they really work good.